That's a Shame is brought to you by the people who support us over at patreon.com/shamecity.
If you have
$2.
$1 to spare, join us again at patreon.com/shamecity. Please.
Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of That's a Shame. Won't be saying what number it is because, well, that's just a new decision for a new decade. I'm Isaac, joining me in brand new glasses, which he self-described as nonstacular. It's Declan. How are you?
I'm all right. Feeling non-stacular.
Good.
It's got to be said.
Good.
It's been exactly a week.
I know, weird, right?
Very strange.
It feels odd to have that bookending of the week back like Jesus meant when he said, and on the Sabbath we rest. And for us Catholics, I know you and I, we've got big Catholic heritage. That's why we'll be voting RLB.
Didn't you see you down at the church this morning?
No, I was at the bigger one. I was at the Cardinals one, doing some of my Catholic rites.
As you know,
rituals.
bigger doesn't mean better because some of the best worship
true.
is done inside the cell.
That's true, but God is huge.
But also small enough to be inside all of us.
Yeah, and I guess it's that.
Including Babis.
It's that mystery that's always provoked a certain, dare I say, lust in us believers. And that's why we worship as we do so fervently and on the Sabbath. And what better form of worship is there, pulling this right back around, than AudioPod?
Now, it's interesting that you bring up AudioPod because Bryony was talking to me today about a friend of hers who has something of a Carl Pilkington vibe to them now and again.
That's good.
You know, they're a much happier person than Carl.
So pretty low bar to
Much
clear.
better looking. It's got to be said as well.
That's not nice.
But she does, from time to time, have that same unique way of phrasing things, of thinking about the world.
Right.
And apparently the discussion between them turned quite recently to the topic of ASMR.
Oh, everyone's a favourite.
Exactly.
Hello, love, it's me. I'm going to lick your ear canals. That would have sounded so horrible. Sorry about that tapping.
I don't like when they do the tapping.
No,
really annoys me.
Do you know anyone who does?
No, I don't.
Here's what: crinkling, tapping, pouring just makes you need to get out of bed and go to the bathroom.
Clothes scratching ones.
Retching. That almost never works for me. I'm marking an exam.
Ooh, tingles.
Hi, I'm the librarian wearing a low cut.
So it turned to ASMR, and she said, "Yeah, but when you think about it, it's just VR for the ears."
Wow, that's a lovely.
Which is a delightful.
It is
way of
true as well, I guess, or at least it can be true. But then that's not just ASMR.
That's just sound.
It's not any sound. Like there's no virtual element to the sound that we're hearing now, really. But if we were in this room and I'm listening to like audio recorded in even the next room, that would be VR for the ears.
Wow.
It's interesting that the ears, they don't really care that much about VR.
No.
Compared to the eyes, which get really freaked out by it.
My eyes went nuts.
Mine were so wide that I had to physically crease them back shut.
Which was hard because you're wearing the device.
Yeah, and when you've got the big Oculus on, well, anyone scratching at the eyes will find it a challenge. And that's why they design it like that. Because sometimes people do react quite
When we're playing
fervently.
Smash, you're always trying to scratch my eyes out.
Yeah, no, that's
Score
different.
yourself a few extra points.
That's a different reason, though. When did you first experience the virtual reality yourself?
Well, it was when I came to your house and friend of the show, Matthew, was there.
And you played Big Doll 3.
Yeah.
Doll's back.
He was back.
Yeah.
I played played is a strong word.
Yeah, for any VR experience for the most part.
I did the stand and look one where you
played that.
Suddenly you are inside the womb.
Yes, that's odd, isn't it?
There's a big baby, and then you get hit by a train.
Yeah.
And then after that, I played Doll's Back 3, Doll's Back.
Yeah, and that
again
one,
for the third time.
That one's really spooky and creepy.
You're just sort of looking around, and maybe there's this creepy doll.
Yeah.
And maybe there isn't.
Yeah. It's kind of only by accident, I think, of the fact that the most likely candidate for someone who'd buy VR would be someone who's like relatively well off, which would probably tend to imply that they're like of working age, right? And also like interested in new technology. Basically what I'm saying is if VR didn't self-select for younger people, there would have been people already who have fucking died because of a doll jumping out at them in the virtual reality.
100%.
And I guess it's only a matter of time before that happens, and it could, I just do want to warn you, it could be you and your loved ones.
Could be any of us.
And I use the word and.
It's one of those things you always think is going to happen to somebody else.
And then a train fucking slams you straight in the rift. Sad, isn't it? So, segueing away from that now.
Because, VR, it's a very modern form of art and media and entertainment.
And it's something you can watch porn in.
And
so is a book where you can, the original porn.
You can watch porn in a book.
Oh, no,
if you sort of cut out some pages and put your phone in there.
No, or if someone's written a pornograph.
I would think of that more as reading than watching.
You watch books, don't you?
No.
What are you doing? Just watching a book. But you hear that all the time.
No.
Yeah, no, you're talking to some of the right people. It is very good to watch a book. It sort of implies a different activity, I suppose.
I suppose it implies you're more engaged. Also implies you haven't understood. And you could be thinking of anything.
We're alluding, of course, to a staple of the TAS canon.
Which was cruelly and callously missed out last year.
Yeah.
Probably due to the fact that we didn't do any pod for most of it.
Yes, maybe we forgot also. And that will sometimes happen again.
But seasoned listeners, veterans, that many of you are, will remember, of course, that we have at least once dabbled.
Twice, I think. Yeah.
Well, that is at least once.
Okay, yeah, I suppose it is, but I think you're underselling it.
Have dabbled in the dark arts that are the Bad Sex in Fiction Awards.
The BSIFs.
If you must.
And so whenever the BSIFs come out, we're on Twitter, we'll be on sometimes Snapchat, sometimes TikTok, just percolating in all the information, all of the hot takes, some writers lamenting their lack of inclusion in this year's shortlist or long list. I don't quite know how official these awards are. And other people just sharing them around. This year, I did my level best to kind of avoid it all, because I knew eventually we'd come round to it. And that day, dear listeners, has arrived. We've got a new format for you this time. Maybe you'd like to just explain how it's going to work.
Well, this year, rather than Isaac having to just hear me read them all out.
Yeah, because that does make me feel sick to my core.
We've split them up. So I'm going to read some.
And I'm going to watch some as well.
And Isaac's going to watch some.
Yeah. And there's a crucial and though, right?
Oh, yeah.
You've missed out a really
Are we dropping that in?
part.
I thought it might have been something we'd try and slide by the listeners.
No, I think we should tell them in advance.
Pointless now anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty easy to guess.
We've added in some home-brewed bad sex in fiction. It's not award-winning by any means. I wouldn't dare to say that it is.
No.
Or that it could be, but it should be.
I don't want to make presumptions about your own IRL sex life. But I'm going to put it out there that my particular extracts,
it's exactly the same as
they're not
how you're
based
down.
upon my own experiences. What I did was I went, like Altered State kind of style.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
I just sort of thought, what would be bad?
Yeah, that's interesting because I would not have presumed that they were based on your life until you kind of made that slightly clumsy attempt to distance yourself from them. And now I'm going to assume that this is autobiographical.
No, there's no need. No, of course not. And
I'll just listen out, and if I hear
anything
of a nasal voice permeating the text,
well, you will because I'll be reading them.
I suppose so.
So that I'm kind of caught there.
If it's like a sort of like a pronominal voice,
I suppose it's more. The way that you introduced it made it sound like we dropped some of our own in, like
a cool anecdote.
Yeah.
Like once I was dicking down with Lady Di. Never happened, just so you know. I want to be clear about
out of interest before you...
Yeah?
See, again, I wouldn't have assumed that you had, but now I'm thinking...
No. England's rose remained
just out of interest in yours, have you used the phrase dicking down at all in your...
I can't... I'm some of the authors may have done, but, that could have been any of...
Interesting.
Because it's one of those common phrases, isn't it? It's like the beast with two backs.
Of course.
I think it is Shakespearean as well, isn't it? It's Merry Rise of Windsor where he says, forsooth, thou hast dicketh down upon thy maid. And yeah, it was a turning point, I suppose, in the canon, where Shakespeare was proven to be a total fucking creep, nonce, a real smut lord.
I've ended up with one more than you.
That's fine.
So I figure I should probably start.
Yeah, that's fine, mate.
We're not going to name any titles or authors.
Yeah. However, I think you probably did as well come up with titles for your own that you're proud of.
Yeah, I've come up with titles and authors for them. So afterwards,
or we could maybe give all the titles. Oh no, yeah, afterwards you're right, because you know them.
I know all the
Fair.
titles. Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to read one out. It could be of your own hand, or it could just be of your own mouth, or it could be both, and that's going to be for me and the detective-minded listeners to ascertain.
I'm doing a bold thing here. I'm starting with one of this year's winners because it went to
Jamaican
2.
accent. Interesting choice.
I think, having read this text,
Yeah.
I think that might be the only way to make it worse.
Oh.
And I therefore, because it's already jail-worthy,
Good.
for reasons you will soon find out,
Yeah.
I'm just going to go ahead and use my own
That's fine. That's a choice.
nasally sort of tone.
No, it's an option for sure.
The earthy taste surprised her. Any...
Well, it's dick.
Not quite.
Ah,
Nearly.
Okay.
When he was alive,
Yeah.
when it swelled inside Miyuki's mouth, Katsuro's penis had tasted of raw fish, of warm young bamboo shoots, and of fresh almonds when she finally released its juices.
They're all different flavour palettes.
Now it was insipid and muddy to her tongue, like the pools at the temples of Heian-kyo, where the Office of Gardens and Ponds had them drained for cleaning. Miyuki had loved this man. Not that he was a very good lover, but what did she know, after all, since she had experienced no one but him? He used to upset her by the way he silently loomed up behind her and took her by the shoulders, his nails scratching her flesh, his strong breath enveloping her neck, a smell of ripe fruit and poorly tanned leather, his knee pushing against her lower back to open her tunic and expose a portion of naked flesh, against which he would rub his organ, as if he were furtively making omelette rolls.
Nice.
He did not derive his pleasure without her, but in front of her, and differently.
Okay. Couple of questions.
Fire away.
I've not made omelette rolls myself, but
Nope.
I didn't know that you used a kind of dick as a stirring
You
device.
are only allowed to
Or a
use
rolling
it.
pin, perhaps.
No, it's interesting because the way that you create the consistency is just by this sort of
Semen.
not the semen. Interestingly enough, it's just that no hand could ever create the same movement as the male member.
That's so interesting that the has those abilities just latently. It's kind of like, you know, all the creationists with whom we agree, of course, who would happen upon the great banana analogy and look at the way in which it's just designed by God for our hands. It's 5 facades, I suppose, mirroring our human grip. It's easy, self-contained peel process, keeping it fresh for the mouth. So too,
And interestingly, no other creature is able to eat the banana.
Not one. And if they did, well, we'd shoot them.
We have to get rid of them
with the God-given guns,
lest they take over their own planet.
And it's amazing that, like that banana, and I never saw this from kind of 90s creationist thinkers, the penis is perfectly designed for omelette action.
And it's not that you can't make it with, like,
No,
your hands,
I'm sure you
but
can.
you could just taste the difference.
Yeah, it's like, well, you could just bite into the banana peel and all, but that would be an act against God.
Yeah.
And with, therefore, the Satan.
You mentioned you might have had another couple of questions.
Yeah, it was mostly to do with the food angle. There was obviously like a real culinary vibe throughout it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there were just a lot. It was a real mixed message of tastes and flavour sensations on offer. Could you just summarise in order the different foods or tastes, starting with mud, if you would?
Earthy,
Earthy, yeah.
raw fish.
See, that straight away is so different. And I know that they're not saying it's exactly at the same moment, but it's just staggering to think that the same member could contain that flavour realm.
I'll be honest, I was made to feel inadequate by this passage.
Yeah.
I I'm certain that I'm not encompassing as many of the food
This
groups.
guy's like a pack of jelly beans.
Yeah, it's like an absolute smorgasbord.
It's a Bertie Bott's every flavoured dick. Carry on.
Warm young bamboo shoots.
Now that's we can all agree, like that's par for the course.
That's
You're in the
classic.
shower sometimes.
Fresh almonds.
It's kind of a cyanide vibe, I think.
Well, perhaps.
Talking
but
about the poison of creative batter.
I was thinking like Bakewell tart.
Maybe that as well. And that, funnily enough,
Mr. Kipling.
Mr. Kipling, another staple of the English tradition, and it would be in those very same Bakewell tarts that it would be so easy to disguise the cyanide capsule from the penis. And yeah, I guess that's saying something. I'm not sure what.
What about the idea of just rubbing his dick against her leg?
I loved wood in that context, and I don't assume it's a pun because I've maybe wrongly assumed that this is fiction in translation.
You have. It's not in translation from the language the text implies.
Okay. So wood then is a very, very particular choice, right? Because it's not that he could do it. It's not that he did do it. It's that it implies this like sort of monotonous repetition of the act that it's almost like he's treating what is it a portion of her flesh at this stage?
Yes, it's just a portion of her flesh.
It's like he's treating that portion, which again is a word that speaks to me of chip shops and of doling out battered cod, tying back to that fresh fish acidity from Act 1. It seems like it's quotidienne almost, and this is like,
to me, what I got from the whole thing was
an erection. No doubt.
That is
the old bamboo shoot.
Surely,
warming up.
Surely, that's just the case for all of them. Now, what I think is that the author in question probably thought, I'm going to write this about the Japanese. What would his cum taste like? Well, it's sushi.
So it might be.
And then thought, what would their sex be like? Well, they're all pervs. And I think that's what he probably decided.
So you're saying this is the work of a racist?
I am saying that. Yeah. And honestly, I don't think... Because the weird thing, most of the people who win this award are bad people.
Right.
Their writing is bad and their opinions about writing are bad. I got up a quote here from the American novelist Tom Wolfe, who won it.
I'm not familiar with Wolfe's of...
No, well, he wrote some bad sex.
Okay.
He won in 2004.
2004.
And
wow.
this was his response. There's an old saying, you can lead a whore to culture, but you can't make her sing. In this case, you can lead an English literary wannabe to irony, but you can't make him get it, said the American novelist after winning for a passage in I Am Charlotte Simmons that included the line, slither, 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 slither went the... But the hand, that was what she tried to concentrate on, the hand, since it was the entire terrain of her torso to explore, and not just the otorhinolaryngological caverns.
Hot. I'm sorry,
gets me
to be honest,
going.
I blanked out after the pentaslither because that kept me on the ropes good and proper until
If
the
you're
end.
wondering how the tongue went, let me tell you, it was unequivocally
I've also
slither.
thought, isn't that horticulture thing? I thought that was always a joke about that sounding like horticulture. Have I only ever heard the joke version of that saying, or has
Maybe.
he got it wrong? One of the two things exists. Seems weird to reference that quote without referencing the much more.
What, otorhinolaryngological
No, the bit where
caverns?
it's like you can lead a horticulture.
Oh, right.
I've always heard that as a part of a gardening joke that horrible people say.
Maybe that was his fun take on it.
Yeah, maybe.
Because he was a good loser.
Yeah, for sure.
So it wouldn't surprise me if he was like, I don't know, what would Japanese cum taste like? Bamboo, because he's done a sort of similar conflation race crime. And sushi.
So I guess, unless you're really playing hardball here, we know this one's not by you. In which case, we could probably exclude it from
I'm just
proceedings.
outing myself.
So basically, guys, I hate all Japanese. My name's Declan. See you next
Everything
week.
from the Far East, that's the same to me.
In which case, can you tell us who it is by and what it's from?
That was The Office of Gardens and Ponds by Didier Deswan.
Wow.
Or probably Desquin.
How's it
You're the
spelled?
French person.
Didier Ducoin. Ducoin.
Ecoin.
Yeah, I don't know.
De
how to say
coin.
it. Didier of coins.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to get a little pic of Didier up so that we can put a face
Yeah,
on him.
you have a little look because
Oh, he's very old.
he's very
Oh, God.
he's very racist, isn't he?
He wrote The Chambermaid on the Titanic, you remember? Mm-hmm. John L'Enfer, Abraham de Brooklyn, and Avec Vue sur la mer, that's French for I hate the Japanese. Really weird. So he's been going on that particular angle for quite some time. Mm-hmm. A lovely piece for a lovely time. And you say he was one of the winners.
He was one of the winners.
I think that's fair because it was despicable and
It was
disgusting.
awful.
Yeah, made only worse by the fact that, like you say, very racialized kind of angle to the.
You wonder what Didier's doing writing about such characters.
You do wonder, but I'm sure he means well. I'm not. I'm going to read one of mine now. I'm just deciding which one to go with.
When you say one of yours,
one of my list, yeah.
I see.
I'm going to read one that I wrote, thereby ruining the game. I'm deciding, what do you think? Shortest to longest, longest to shortest?
I'm not doing it in any such order like that. I just put the 5 in random order.
Okay, I've not done anything of the sort. I'm just going to go with the one that happened to be at the top. She gave a yet deeper, moaning sigh. Like breathing in, he saw the word he had said shiver and expand inside her. Her arms moved now and flexed.
Oh.
Out of here, Venus de Milo. That's a cocktail.
Oh.
He watched The Death Life. Now it's hyphenated. Sorry, Grateful. Sondheim territory.
That's a good oxymoron, I think that's called.
A what?
An oxymoron.
Oh.
I did an English
No,
degree.
don't talk to me anymore. He watched the death life fill her growingly. She grabbed and caressed him with more muscle, more zest than ever before. Her long, lean arms were spider arms, while her kisses roved and dug. I see it, he said. You are the female praying mantis, devouring her mate.
Sorry.
I am.
Are they actually saying that to each other?
I shall eat every shred of you.
Oh.
Mouthful by mouthful. Exactly. But boy, you taste good. She licked her lips and pulled him close. But now he was clasping too. It was a kind of slow wrestling. They were knitting each other into a loose, slipping knot. He was upside down over her, loving her bush and kissing, like eating her inner thighs, till at last they loved fully and later lay back. She did not chatter. Their arms stirred in a luxurious, desultory twining. The end.
I'll tell you what the first sort of image that I got was.
Yeah.
When we were doing campaigning for the Labour Party.
Yeah. Which we did really well at and we won, I think.
There was a moment in one of the big groups where...
WhatsApp groups.
WhatsApp groups, I should specify. When one really unfortunate chap...
Yeah, potentially unfortunate. Potentially...
I can only assume by accident, forwarded to the group a 2.5 minute video of pornography on one of the busiest days of canvassing going.
While canvassing was happening. So, middle of the night. It was also, we should just specify, it was either mid-morning or early afternoon.
It was like 2.
Either way, and you know me, I'm not one to judge. Judge not lest ye be judged. It's an odd time to be
It was a Sunday,
partaking. Oh, was it? Fair.
Yeah.
I take it all back.
He probably just got back from worship.
Yeah, that's fair.
So now this video, because I thought it was an image, it was a video.
Yeah.
I tapped the little play icon when I saw it come up, just to see what flavour he'd sent to the group. And it started seemingly innocuous. Your classic guys
Dicking
fucking
down.
a gal, dicking down, exactly. But then very quickly it was revealed
It was a reveal.
that this was no normal pornographic video.
In my head, this moment of reveal that you're about to reference is a bit like if you've ever seen any of the behind the scenes stuff for filming Lord of the Rings. How they used forced perspective of Ian McKellen sitting basically inside the lens of a camera while Elijah Wood is 3.5 miles back to imply difference of scale.
It's more like, in a film when someone bumps into a guy and it's starts a fight and they're having a go and then the guy they bumped into stands up and the camera's behind their shoulder and they're suddenly looking down. It was like that. The woman got up and she was a clear 2.5 feet taller than the guy and bigger in every sense.
Yeah.
And she began to like pick him up and spin him round, and she was holding him upside down. Like it was, that seemed to be the vibe I got from your text. She was flexing.
Yeah,
she was like wrestling.
Yeah, and
There was a lot going on. She had a great bush, apparently.
Yeah, and she was the female praying mantis.
She was the female praying mantis, despite also being a spider.
Yes,
as well.
That confused me at first, but I do love insects, and I do want to have sex with them.
The spider is not an insect.
Oh,
I don't want you to.
That's true. I don't want to spread any fake news, fake arachnid news. What do you think is meant by the word "it" in the sentence? I see it, he said. You are the female praying mantis. Is it like the reality of the situation?
I think it's the ruse.
So your take is that she is a literal praying mantis, sort of hatching out of a fleshy. And
he's like, I see it, and she's like,
oh Christ!
I am going to eat you bit by bit.
Yeah,
you taste good.
I suppose the dialogue is very good, and I suppose that because I've just watched it, and I will give you some of it again. I see it. You're the female praying mantis devouring her mate. I am. You are. I shall eat every shred of you. Shall is nice there. Mouthful by mouthful. Exactly. Ah, but boy, you taste good. So it's really clever. I don't know if that read for you, but I read that and I thought that's really clever. It's almost,
you know what?
Too. I don't know. It's almost too clever.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yes.
You enjoyed it though.
I was very good.
And kind of tumescence rating, you're at a stiff 8.
We're at the angle,
or a fleshy 6.
I'm going to do it by
a spongy 4.
Angle that would be created against the stomach.
Okay.
Is acute.
Ooh,
so
goodness me.
Let me tell you.
What a start.
Over
to you.
Frank looked at the offering before him. The young man was bent over, prostrate, head buried deep in a mound of decorative pillows that Frank's wife had bought some years ago. Frank had always despised them, had resented the slog of removing and returning them that bookended each night's sleep. At least tonight, when Judy was making him place each one delicately in the antique wooden chest where they spent the night, he would have this image to enjoy. He was kneeling directly behind Wayne, looking down from between
Wayne,
his...
this is you. Come on. Don't give me that. I had to change all my characters' names after I made more things like Daz.
Yeah.
Dirty
I
Nate.
couldn't resist. Looking down from between his parted calves. Wayne's cock was hanging limply at the moment, only now starting to become engorged by the anticipation, a fledgling erection, if you will, just beneath his pert little anus. Frank looked at this tableau with the same eyes he did everything else. A computer programmer's. Cock and hole, 1 and 0.
Come
the binary of male
Lord.
sexuality from which all his desires could be coded.
Oh no, this whole episode got lost, unfortunately.
He wondered momentarily whether it would be tantrically possible for him to fill Wayne while Wayne simultaneously filled him, like an Ouroboros of homoerotic passion, but dismissed the idea almost immediately, given the near impossible anatomic topology of the position.
Near impossible? Explain yourself. What sort of broken, impossible geometry?
Especially with his lower back being the shambolic excuse for a spine it was these days. No.
I don't think that's to blame.
He'd just pump until Wayne's rear cup overfloweth, and then check the lottery results. Yes, that's what he wanted.
It's a sort of a shame that, part of this process was that there'd be a kind of illusion of anonymity when it came to the writing, and be like, is that Declan, or is that like one of the authors? But when it became so clear so early on that you'd written that, it tarnished the text for me quite.
Well, I don't know what you mean, because that was an extract from In Between Leaves of Chance by Winter de Koenig.
Winter de Koenig. Okay, so it's not yours.
No,
that's horrible. That's really, really bad and horrible that you would write that. So, do you know any more about what the text is?
No.
I think you should keep it that way.
Well, I wrote it, so I
Oh,
can't.
goodness. He's done the double bluff.
Oh, dear.
It's really horrible what you've done. And I think the less said about it, the better.
You didn't think that my
The less,
inclusion of
the
the
better.
gamer community...
No,
you know-
I didn't think that was good. No.
No?
I didn't think it was good.
No. There was sort of a coming together of the
Don't say that.
technological, but also the mythological.
Yeah. And of the programmer, traditionally not a very fuckable character. You've really updated that for the modern age where he's not only fuckable, but the kind of the fucko. He's doing the fucking.
He's doing the fucking
Yeah.
of Wayne,
Yeah, the binary boy.
but then also it's surely implied at some point in his life his wife.
Was Wayne a robot as well, or is that just...
No, I think that was just
subtext?
you. I think that was subtext.
He was, and Wayne represented the internet as well, I guess.
Yes.
So that's really interesting what
Yeah.
you've done. It's a shame about that, but never mind. I've got one for you.
Mm-hmm.
He clung to her, crying, and then made love to her and went far inside her, and she begged him to go deeper and, no longer afraid of injuring her, he went deep in mind and body among crowded organ cavities, past the contours of her lungs and liver, and shimmying past her heart. Shimmying past her heart. He felt her perfection. The end. Just think about it, just reflect on it.
What do you think about the image shimmying past her heart?
It's beautiful. I've never been so kind of aroused by the cardio world.
Now, you may have heard me make mention of it while you were reading. The man in question in the extract.
Yeah.
Just how hung is he?
Well, that's partly for the reader. They say show don't tell. So if I'd started that, I mean, if that extract had started with he clung to her crying, and then with his 8.5 foot long, anatomically precise member made love to her, and then described this journey, this almost kind of snake-like, in the sense of the Nokia 3310 game, snake-like precision with which he's orthogonally diverting past the intestines, then up through the gallbladder, maybe through a sphincter here and there, back down the left ventricle, best ventricle, 2020, until he finds her perfection. I think that would have taken away some of the artistry. And so it's the lack of, it's up to the reader, because it isn't good art when you watch it. It's supposed to provoke that sense of wonder, like, how?
Because it made
How's his dick doing this crazy
Well, yeah, because it
stuff?
made me think of, there's a moment in some of the Ricky Gervais show podcasts where Carl tries to say that he's heard somewhere
Yeah, I remember this.
that the most erotic thing you could do is like an internal heart massage.
Yeah, a digital massage. But you're kind of burying the lead that this is not through the traditional chest incision method so much as it is via fisting.
Yeah, the idea that they have to explain to him that not only do you have about 40 foot of gut to go through, that it also implies you have to rip through the
You'd be
esophagus.
fucking dead.
You've killed someone.
You would be dead for climbing inside a person's corpse.
Holding the heart would be something of an underwhelming experience, given it would not any longer be beating.
Dear me, that's a horrible idea. But a really erotic piece, I'm sure you'll agree.
Exactly. Yeah, lovely.
Hit me with one of yours.
Here we go.
What's the vibe of this next one, would you say?
I don't know.
We're going to find out together.
Seems to be italics.
Hot.
There was a sensation occurring here that I didn't even know could occur. I took the sharpest inhale of my life, and I'm not sure I let my breath out for another 10 minutes. I do feel that I lost the ability to see and hear for a while. And that something
It's a mad thing to just drop in.
I think
By
I
the
was
way, I had a
clinically
fucking
dead.
mini stroke.
And that something might have short-circuited in my brain.
Dear.
Something that has probably never been fully fixed since.
Let's go. I'm writing this diving Bell and the Butterfly style, blinking away, one word at a time.
My whole being was astonished. I could hear myself making noises like an animal, and my legs were shaking uncontrollably.
I fucking
Brackets. Not that I was trying to control them. And my hands were gripping down so hard over my face that I left fingernail divots in my own skull.
Oh, that's not possible. That person's misunderstood what a skull is.
I know.
They think it's your whole head. Scalp, maybe.
Then it became more. And after that, it
More
became
again.
even more still.
Fuck off.
Then I screamed.
If this is not you, I'm so angry.
Then I screamed as though I were being run over by a train. And that long arm of his
Oh, the long arm of the law reached up my perfect heart.
was reaching up again to palm my mouth. And I bit into his hand the way a wounded soldier bites on a bullet. And then it was the most, and I more or less died.
More or less. That's
Oh
amazing.
dear.
I have a few things about that.
Okay.
But working backwards.
Yep.
Have I or this author been misusing or misunderstanding the idiom to bite a bullet for a long time? I assumed it meant shooting yourself. This person seems to think it's biting a cyanide capsule,
I
which
don't
is not
know.
a bullet.
I don't. I would probably.
Because a wounded soldier does not bite a
They
bullet.
don't. No.
But I suppose they might shoot themselves. But
Yeah.
why would they?
I don't know why that would be in. Why that would make sense here.
I don't know why you do that whilst biting someone's palm
A
specifically.
hand, yeah.
I tried that as you were doing it. It's hard to get much purchase on a palm unless this person has you get those like pads on the front of your hand. His
Calloused.
must be giant.
Well, it is on his long arm.
So long arm.
yeah.
They say the longer
Long
the arm, the
thick
more
palm.
padded the palm. Oh. Yeah, they do say that. Wow.
There seems to be a lot of focus in this piece on the idea of the narrator basically being fucked to death.
Yes, now that was unfortunate to behold. And it did seem more like a kind of coded cry for like an insurance scheme to take over their medical payment, because it sounds expensive, the whole thing. That's the kind of fucking you can't be doing willy-nilly, if you'll pardon my French, because it seems like it's left her, as she says, more or less fucking dead. So it's dangerous. I guess that's about the eroticism of that knife edge between the life and the death.
You know, the French, you will know, say
You're gone.
la petite mort, don't they?
Oh, what's that like?
It's like
more
the small dying.
small. Yeah.
Yeah, when you like come.
I've never heard of any of
And
that stuff. I thought that was an original idea in this really.
the little more, and then after that, the little even more still.
Yeah.
And then you'll see it was also most was at the end, so it's
That's
like
nice.
more,
That's a
even more,
development.
most. Yeah. That was from City of Girls by
of
Elizabeth Gilbert, whose name you may know.
Yes, I do know Elizabeth
because she
Gilbert.
wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh, good sign. Was there a lot of? Did the eating, the praying, and the loving revolve around palms and long arm and dick in that novel? I've not read it.
I've not read it either, but it seemed to be made into what looked like a very PG
Well, they
film.
must have cut a lot of that stuff away because you can't.
I think the man with the long arm is canon in both, though.
It's like a Stephen King
He's
extended
like
universe.
Prey, but the trouble is he's got one hand against his inner elbow.
If his arm's long enough, he could probably do all three of those things at once. He'd be like feeding himself grapes with just a flick of the finger.
Yeah.
While praying, obviously that's a two-handed job. And the love, I mean,
We'll leave it up to
the
you.
heart's
but-
not going to stay unmassaged for long. Let's put it that way. Let me hit
Give us
you-
another, yeah.
This is my longest one, so strap in. As B Company filed out of the mess, now there's some words in here that require a kind of American accent, but I won't be doing it. As B Company filed out of the mess, capital M, Captain Walker's eyes remained fixed dead ahead. His composure in the field was unmatched, but this was a new test of mettle. A close observer might have noticed his breathing had deepened. His sculpted upper body, a physique even his captain's blues couldn't hide, swayed softly like the stars and stripes they'd erected over the sad village Stamper's men had liberated the day before. When the last of the men had gone, his facade shattered like a glass cannon. His powerful hands grasped below the table for the familiar velvet wire of Lieutenant Price's yacht cut, and Walker's thick lips parted in a deep moan of approval as the younger man's molars grazed the battle-worn shaft of his captain's
No
lock.
one else has ever used the word molars.
His eyes rolling back in his head,
Making it
Walker's
all
mind-
military, trying to throw me off.
Walker's mind was filled involuntarily with memories of sand and blood on the sand. He felt a jolt of pleasure and hated himself for it. Price, he groaned. Status report. Price slid his head back slowly, his neck bending with the grace and length of an insurgent swan. Walker plopped out of his mouth with a satisfying thud, and the old soldier quivered at the gravity of the impact. Flesh on flesh, hard on soft, smooth on crease. Almost there, Captain, Price grinned. T-minus 30 seconds to impact. And with a twinkle in his eye, he returned to the mission. And that was from, I mean, you made some bold accusations, but that is from Breakpoint Bravo by Lou Morton.
I remember seeing his name. I remember seeing Lou among the shortlisted
Yeah, Big Lou
authors.
Morton.
Yeah.
The military pervert.
Now I've got, you've, as listeners to the show will know,
Yeah.
you've always been a man who's seen the power of onomatopoeia. So I just want to focus on the line he plopped out of his mouth.
Yeah, well, it's damp, isn't it?
What is?
His captain's member, his captain's log. Yeah.
Well,
It would be damp
yeah?
because what's going on? I'll just take you through it again.
No,
They're
well,
in
you
the
don't have to
mess. I think the mess maybe means where you eat or fuck or play.
They'd
I don't
like us
know.
to think it's
like
where
the
they
mess hall.
Yeah.
Or I was going to do the rec room, but I thought I might have made that one up, or that might be like a
It's
treasure
just
house.
in like houses.
And anyway, so they're in there. B company, they're leaving, so they've already finished their dinner. But all the while, and what's hotter than this? Walker's at the captain's table, which I think might only be on boats. Now that I think about it, and he's getting sucked off by
Getting serviced.
the wiry head of Lieutenant Price.
Wow.
Yeah, so his yacht
Lieutenant
cut-
Price or
No, he's a lieutenant. This is an American group. I set this during Iraq 1. I hope that read.
well, the themes are
A lot
there.
of the like this idea of the interplay between pleasure in serving your country and guilt at slaughtering innocents.
the idea of like the old and the young.
Yeah, communing
interesting.
via the medium of sucking off.
Of getting your dick wet
Yeah, and it
at
plopping.
the expense of another man's mouth.
Did you like the characterization of Price with
sorry.
his slow head slide, with his neck? A very
The insurgent
bendy,
swan.
bendy and graceful and long neck. I was picturing it like, those
Well, it made me think it was
Jimmy Neutron
to
things.
me. It made it seem even all the more British.
Yeah.
Perhaps again about a
It's
kind
about
of
the
a
history of-
precursor to
Yeah.
Iraq too.
You've got it right. It's
Yeah.
about the history of imperialism as a Western
the insurgent
project.
swan
Yeah,
coming
exactly.
in. Yeah, no, it was powerful.
And what colour is a swan?
Well,
Yeah.
I needn't tell the
Yeah,
audience.
Exactly. Something for them to think about themselves. So yeah, that was Sergeant Lou Morton.
BD.
Thank you for your service, Lou.
The actual lovemaking was a series of cryptic clues and concealed pleasures, a sensual treasure hunt. She asked for something, then changed her mind. He made adjustments and calibrations, awaited further instruction. For most of the proceedings, he felt his own desire as if it were tethered to a wire, a bright red balloon floating in his peripheral vision. Get fucked by Pennywise. But eventually he burst through. It was toward the end, as their breathing quickened. Her stage directions had stalled out into silence. He looked to his right and noticed the scene in the smoky lens of the mirror above the bureau. Saw his own body move with the steady rhythm of a bellows blowing air at the base of a fire. It brought back the early experiments at the Photographic Society in Paris. The wiring of a bird's feet to a camera gun. The mounting tension and uplift before a surge of exasperated flight.
Keep it going.
His own face looking back in the mirror, open-mouthed, flushed,
Tell me
euphoric,
more about the
was
bird's
a wild,
feet.
strange thing to him. A beguiled stranger he'd never met, held in place by an infinite loop. Then His eyes locked onto Sabine's in the mirror, and he could see that she was pleased with her staging, with her hair fanning across the pillow, with the way her ankles locked about his calves so that her long white feet formed a
They're LWFs.
formed a perfect V.
It is Pennywise.
And it was the act of looking back at the film strip juddering above the bureau that sent her into a final boisterous delirium. She bit his shoulder, then whispered into the mirror, "Nous voilà," catching her breath. There we are.
Beautifully, fiery, erotic. I don't know what to say to myself after that. Need to have a word.
Yeah?
Onan himself couldn't. Well, no, I suppose it's a bad example. Could not have contained spilling his seed in jollity after that.
Famous prude Onan.
I didn't understand the actions of what was going on there very much.
Which is interesting given that that seemed to be the sole basis of the scene.
It sounded like, so obviously they're fucking. She was also talking to a mirror. So I guess there was a mirror somewhere she was looking in, watching them. Then there was a bird being wired to something, but that was in her memories.
There were some long feet.
Yeah, well, they were probably half taken up the majority of the room. I noticed, and I think I'm right in saying, that the image of Bellows has featured in at least one other.
Yeah, at least two, I would presume.
And is that, I don't know, am I kind of on my own in not always finding, not exclusively, but not always finding Bellows hard making, kind of erotic?
No, you're not alone.
Okay.
I'll
So
be
you don't,
honest.
it's not every time you see Bellows that you have to excuse yourself.
It's not.
Yeah, same.
It's not.
But it sounds like we're missing out then, right? Because
Well,
we've not published
Sounds
any
like I
books.
certainly am.
Okay. I've got my last one here.
Okay.
I present it, I can't even find it, unedited, and see what you make of it. He plunged into her then, and her sin began to sing. A deep, primal wail of clasping fingers and rasping breath, of firing synapses and clenching sinew. A song of Pomoja, that's in italics. A ballad of being, that's in italics. A mazurka for the pinprick, diamond-coated, white-hot, lead-lined agony of holding all that feeling in so fragile a vessel. She looked up at him. Tributaries of sweat snaking his jowl as they searched for liquid communion, and wondered whether her ecstasy was God's blessing or his most agonising curse.
Oh, goodness.
Either way, she thought, it's too late now. What's your gut check in terms of the hotness rating?
I don't know what was happening.
Well, they were fucking big time.
Oh,
And I don't know if
and I
it's...
missed that. Go on, say again.
So, basically, he plunges into her.
Yeah.
And then her sin, well, it begins to sing, right? You know how it is. Mm-hmm. There's a deep primal wail, there's clasping, there's rasping, there's firing, there's clenching. What do you think?
Well, I think you wrote it.
What? That was from...
Hang on. Oh, go on.
It was actually from Remarkability by Jean Lamotte. Now, that's an anagram of... I am sorry, Mum.
You shouldn't write these things about
Why not?
grasping and wrenching and...
There's some nice bits in there.
Yeah?
Yeah, let me find
What's
them.
your fave?
I like this sentence. A song of Pomoja, which is a Swahili word for togetherness.
Mm-hmm.
A ballad of being. A mazurka for the pinprick. You know what a mazurka is?
No.
It's like a Polish waltz. I think it's Polish. I just like that idea.
He's fucking doing the Lentler all over her while
It's very
dipping
melodic.
down.
Yeah, well, that's his skill, isn't it?
Goodness.
Think how hot that would be if someone could maintain that kind of concentration. Fuck. Hot.
I've got my last one now.
Okay, hit me with it. I've been unsure because I've guessed one of yours correctly.
Yeah.
So it's either... Okay, I'll listen.
She was acutely aware of the sheet wrapped around her foot, and she took a moment to contemplate whether or not this elevated their lovemaking to an act of bondage. But her hands were free, almost too free, distractingly loose from the rest of her, running across the bed frame or the sweat-stuck back of the grunting beast on top of her. She felt oddly distant from him also, in spite of the very real fact that he was definitely ploughing into her with an almost tragic gusto.
This is you.
His face...
Almost tragic gusto Delane.
Thanks. That's what they call me on Tinder. His face was contorted, straining, as if trying to push through an invisible cellophane wall.
It's just his face. How?
She'd never quite seen a grimace like it. Taut but pudgy, pulsating but flat, lips sealed and yet somehow far too toothy. Somewhere south...
Why have we both latched onto the inherent eroticism of the tooth?
Somewhere south of her stomach was an act too heinous to contemplate, replete with a squelch-heavy soundboard of horrific noises which did nothing to motivate her return to presence in the moment. I wonder what time the office shuts, she pondered between lacklustre thrusts.
Nice. That's horrible.
Well, you have Howard Ramsdale to thank for that one.
Oh, is that
Extract from his novel Window Dressing.
Window Dressing, yeah.
Yeah.
It's on my list.
Yeah, on the Amazon wish list that you've got. If anyone wants to buy it for Isaac,
Don't.
I'm sure you'll be sharing the link on the Twitter feed.
No, deleted our account by accident.
Yeah.
I guess now that we've pulled back the wizard's sleeve, an image that here is too redolent of the foreskin for my taste, but perhaps that's only in this context.
Yeah, that's not what that is, though, right?
Yeah, I do know that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not you. We're going to have a little chat
No,
afterwards.
no.
We'll have a
Chat now.
Well, no. We'll have a little chat afterwards.
There is work to be done, I think, in unpacking the characteristics that you latched onto in writing these. So I'm going to pull up my ones again, and I suggest you do the same. What was it about? What were the kind of styles that you were going for? Talk to me about what elements of the bad sex in fiction canon inspired you in particular.
One of the things that I wanted to kind of explore, if I may be so bold, is the way that too many of them try to juxtapose very lofty imagery then with very crude statements of fact.
Yeah, one of the ones that I remember most from last time is that one where it was either just the most like horribly graphic fucking, or everything was like a cog, and there was like no attempt to transition, and in fact every attempt not to. So that it'd be like her
She was a goddess.
her tits was a cog. I fleshed all over them. Like it's that level of like.
Yeah.
They think that having this oscillating, pulsating like TikTok
Because
of body horror and machine.
Yeah,
makes
it's
it
this.
good.
It's this weird, I think, definitely narcissistic desire to maintain a credible writing acumen. You know, you don't want to let that drop, that facade of, but then also you don't want to sound like a total neek when you're writing about doing it.
Yeah.
And so you're going to say like,
got to throw
tits.
some cogs.
What are you going to say? Bosoms?
Yeah. It's a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a little bit.
That was
passe.
one of them. There's a lot of focus on weird sensual imagery as well.
I think, as we have definitely identified before, there's like a kind of clamouring within this particular space in fiction to come up with some new, like, minute moment or body part that you think you can focus the whole thing around just to give it that new spin. So there's a lot of, like, feet or, like, people's, like, fingertips. I guess that's too obvious, but, like, their nail beds and stuff.
And it's weird because none of them ever focus exclusively on those, because they know that if they did, it just sounds like a weird fetish piece.
Yeah.
But then it all just sounds weird to be like, oh, her feet were wrapped behind me like a V. And also, I definitely did make her come. It's a sad kind of desperate flowing
promise.
ebb and flow.
Promise, dear reader.
Yeah. You went for a kind of historical angle in one of yours, militaristic.
That's another thing that I always remember from these awards, is that there is always one that's written by like Corporal Lance murders brown people, and it's very revealing of their worldview of how like everything is just to be conquered, and it's always a disgusting, despicable, badly written mess. Hot, of course.
Well, sexy
Like, that
as
goes
hell.
without saying. But yeah, I think the army ones are always very bad. So I tried to do a spin on it, whereas a bit of an update.
Yeah, there's. Oh, well, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, well, you accomplished that. I think as well in both of mine, there's there's a reference to this thing that all of them do about where they think far too much, and I don't.
They have so much time to be
I don't
like,
want to.
yeah.
I don't want to. Out myself as a base creature, but I wouldn't say I do my best or my most intensive thinking during fucking.
Right.
That, I'm not saying that it's mindless, but I'm saying that I don't sit there and be like, wow, this is reminding me of that time that we walked through the flowers.
And I stapled a pigeon's foot to the
camera.
Parisian
And
camera.
it made me think about Galvini electrocuting frogs' legs.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because clearly the impetus behind all of these, and it's a similar thing to why I did that sentence. There's always one very long sentence where they do that hyphenated thing a lot. So one where I did diamond coated white hot lead line
they love it.
because it's I guess the ultimate impetus behind all of that is that sex is basically a very simple act,
Hugely.
mechanically speaking, and not great to talk about. It's not very interesting to be like,
I went in and then I went out,
and then she did this. But obviously, culturally,
you made it sound like fucking what is it called? Weapon of choice. You could go with this, and you could go with that. You could go with
this
this.
is how I see it, and indeed that song does dictate a certain rhythmic appeal. But yeah. So on the one hand, I'm basic, but on the other hand, it's obviously tied up in every possible social more and taboo and cultural thing that you could possibly have. But I don't think that the way to convey that is to just smash those two things together necessarily. That's why I always, and we've said this on every time we've ever talked about it, on air or not, the best way I think it's ever done is to brush over it and then talk about the surrounding, the aftermath or the lead up. The act itself is almost never, in fact I would go so far as to say never worth it.
No, never.
I've never read a sex in a book and been glad that was there.
I think that's especially true of this kind of tendency towards high thinking and imagery or whatnot, because it's no observation to say that, in those moments afterwards is when people often feel their most shame or guilt or love, or that you are sort of given time to pause where suddenly you can think about other things. And so it makes sense for all of that to be there afterwards. It just doesn't make sense for you to be thinking about, old science experiments during, unless that's a concerted part on every author to mimic this notion of he's trying to think of anything unsexy so as not to come. And his particular
such
thing,
a sexy staple. Surely not.
That was his error.
So the first one you read was one of the winners. What do you know? What the other
Let me
winner
have a
was?
little look. I can't
Because it's hard. I don't envy the task of whoever is in charge of deciding the winners, because they are all kind of uniquely bad in a way that if you're judging things on quality, I don't think it's quite the same problem, because you're oh, that one's better, or made me feel more, or it better represented this. When they're all bad, but in such unique and yet similar ways, then it must be quite a challenging task.
The other one was the...
Was it Captain Price's Blowjob Bonanza?
No, well, that was you. So, unfortunately, they didn't know about that because you only wrote it today. It was Female Praying Mantis.
Was it?
Was the other winner.
Yeah, that was bad. Hot, but,
Well, of course, their arms stirred in a luxurious, desultory twinning.
True.
Twining,
yeah. Twinning would work as well, to be honest.
I don't think it mattered, really.
Add something to it. So there we have it.
I'm spent.
I didn't need to know that at all. We've done this so you don't have to. And, of course, reading them is not so bad as listening to them. So thanks for playing your part in watching this show. We've got an email address, and it's declan@shame.city, and he would love to read any more of them that you want to send.
Go ahead, fire them my way.
Yeah. And he...
Keep them coming.
Maybe that could be a whole other podcast that you do, where you just do erotic readings.
Yeah, well, I've always been told I've got the voice
as an
for
OnlyFans or something. That could be something to branch into. Other than that, we have tacitshame.city for any general correspondence. We're going to leave you with a teaser for something we're working on at the moment, something that Declan brought into our lives and that we're going to be cultivating into, I think, some kind of like mini-series on the main feed, I'll stress, once again. How should we tee it up?
Well, it's a community.
Yes.
It's a very niche community.
Very niche.
But somehow has an unfathomable volume of content for us to trawl through.
And, you know, I'm quite online. You'd say the same about yourself.
Yep.
I've not really heard anything about them ever. Despite them being, like, this is why it's perfect. They're people that you know exist. It's not like when you learn about the gang stalking community.
And you're like, who are these
Wow,
cunts?
that's unusual. This is people that it's clear we probably see them every day. We definitely see them every day.
We know some of
They
them.
walk
certainly.
amongst us, and yet they live such a niche and confined experience that it requires us, hard-hitting investigative journalists as we are, to shine the bright, wet torch of truth straight down their throats and see what they've been eating.
And that's what we've got in store for you in the coming months.
Until then, I've been Isaac, you've been.
I've been Declan.
Stay hard.
Sure.
Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder of my big home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you. Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder, my new home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you. Necessities, the bare necessities, the bare necessities of life will come to you.